All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of crypto news stuff for you today. And when I say that, I mean it. I got a whole bunch, so stick around after the main news. Also, before we get into the main article here, I just want to say that it's been a while since I made a video, and I'll be having a live stream this Friday evening explaining that. Feel free to join in. We discuss cryptocurrency, the markets, all kinds of discussion goes on. But the first thing I want to talk about today is John McAfee is found dead in Spanish prison cell. So very unfortunate. Our crypto shill lord, John McAfee. If you're new into the crypto world, you may not remember John McAfee so much, but if you've been around since 2017 or so, you remember that John McAfee was shilling basically everything under the sun, and it was something like $100,000 he was paid per shill, and he would tweet it, and then the price would just go up. He was basically the Elon Musk before Elon Musk got into cryptocurrency. Tech entrepreneur and antivirus software developer John McAfee was found dead today in his prison cell, according to a report from the Spanish newspaper El Mundo. A statement from Spain's Justice Department confirmed the news and suggested a potential cause of death. Everything points it could be a death by suicide. McAfee had been detained in Spain since late last year on tax evasion charges. His extradition to the U.S. was approved earlier this morning. He was riding around on his yacht for a long time, or rather sailing around on his yacht, and then eventually he went to Spain where they arrested him, and he's been in there ever since. So in March, McAfee was indicted on separate charges of money laundering and fraud relating to his dealings in crypto. U.S. attorney accused McAfee of orchestrating a pump and dump scheme and using social media to illegally promote initial coin offerings, which he did quite a lot in the 2017-2018 era. McAfee's initial claim to fame was McAfee Associates, the antivirus software he founded in '87. He resigned his position in 1994 and spent the remainder of his life distancing himself from the company. McAfee was also an alleged murderer. He was at the center of an investigation surrounding the death of his neighbor in Belize. Though he was never formally charged, he was eventually held liable for the death, but refused to pay the $25 million judgment. A devoted libertarian, he attempted to run for president in 2016 and 2020, and he said at one point, "Know that if I hang myself a la Epstein, it will be no fault of mine," tweeted McAfee last year, referencing a theory about the death of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So, this is rather strange, and I've seen a lot of talkings on Twitter about this, and a lot of people definitely don't believe that he killed himself, in the same way that Jeffrey Epstein likely did not kill himself. Now, every man has his breaking point, but McAfee is really no slouch and no noob, if you will, to prison, as he's probably been there numerous times, or at least for short stays. So I don't think it really broke him in any way. Perhaps the news of him actually being extradited could have been a part of that, but again, on Twitter, there's a lot of conspiracies going around that the Illuminati killed him and things like that because he knew too much. About what, I don't really know, but I find this unlikely. I think in the same way of good old J.E. Didn't either, but a sad day for the crypto shill world. Now, I'm not going to go into too much of this article, but I just happened to come across this earlier today. And it says Spanish court rules John McAfee can be extradited to the United States, and it talks about how the Spain and the United States agreed to extradite John McAfee to the United States to charge him for all of his cryptocurrency dealings, etc., and probably other things as well. This happened earlier today, and then later, a few hours after this came out, it turned out that he had committed suicide in his prison cell. So it's a little strange, a little fast, and according to himself, his own quote, that if he ever kills himself in prison, that it wasn't him that did it. But who knows? Prison can break a lot of men, but again, I argue that John McAfee was no slouch to prison or trouble, so I think he had sort of an ability to handle his prison sentence. Also, he was still tweeting from prison. He was essentially giving tweets to his wife or something like that, and then she was tweeting for him. But moving on here, the Bank of Israel is testing Ethereum tech in the digital shekel trial. The Bank of Israel is trying out Ethereum's technology in a recently launched internal digital shekel trial. In May, the central bank issued a report concluding that the digital payment system could have a positive impact on the economy by simplifying payment processes while providing security to both parties in a transaction. The only thing I find to be a problem here, one, I suppose, is that there's a digital currency, which I think is just essentially the mark of the devil, because there would be no way to make any kind of payments otherwise without actually having physical cash. Although I do not believe that physical cash would just disappear if a digital currency showed up, whether it be in the United States, China, or whatever particular country. I think the physical cash would be around for a long time, but I think they would want to phase that out because there's way too much money involved with making money. So to actually print the money and pay the employees to do that, the machines to do that, the policy to do that, to send it across the world, and banks, etc., to ship it, to lift it, to move it, to count it. There's a lot involved with physical money, and it's all costly, ironically. And a digital currency would indeed be far cheaper. You just simply inflate it or deflate it, send it or receive it, etc., etc. But it could also track you in its entirety. So no more going and paying $50 for a lawnmower on Craigslist or something like that. Well, that would be a thing of the past if physical money was actually destroyed in the way for a digital currency. So that would mean that if you were going to buy that $50 lawnmower off of Craigslist, you would have to use a digital currency to do that, and then you would have to pay taxes because the government knows that you sent money, and both parties would have to pay some taxes on that, whereas with just physical money, you could simply just go up and hand it to somebody and get your product in return. The bank has also put out a call for smart application ideas that could run on the digital infrastructure. Again, another problem I see with this is that Ethereum is way too slow for any kind of digital currency, way too slow. Now, as a small test trial, sure, it could be fine, but currently, without sharding, Ethereum 2.0, etc., it is way too slow for any kind of actual digital currency. So, China is working on one as well, but I've heard nothing about it actually being on the Ethereum chain or anything like that. But it could be good for Ethereum, but again, I don't like a digital currency or a digital fiat currency in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a very bad idea for the people. Great for government, bad for the people. Moving on here, after El Salvador, will Paraguay also adopt Bitcoin? In case you guys missed the news, El Salvador made Bitcoin entirely legal, and it considers it a legal currency. So there is no taxation with Bitcoin trading and Bitcoin transactions, etc., or at least the transaction of their regular, or the taxation of their regular fiat. They're also welcoming any kind of crypto company, and you would get your, essentially you would get your green card pretty much immediately if you had a crypto company and you wanted to move it to El Salvador. So they completely and utterly legalized and treat Bitcoin as a legal tender, which you could pay your taxes and pay the government and pay each other, and it's the same as basically the dollar. A few days ago, El Salvador made a name for itself by adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, and although this has aroused the reluctance of the World Bank and the IMF, another Latin American country may well follow suit, and that's Paraguay. Indeed, as reported by Euronews, a member of the Paraguayan Congress, Carlitos Rejala, got nothing again. I'm the best at pronouncing names ever on YouTube, period. Recently announced on Twitter that he will propose a bill that would make a Bitcoin legal tender. They should table the bill in July. So not quite yet, but it is in the works, and so another country may follow suit with making Bitcoin a legal tender. This project should not only aim to make Bitcoin legal tender, but could also make Paraguay a hub for investments in cryptocurrencies, considering that if you're trading back and forth a legal tender, then there is completely different taxation with that, lower or essentially in some cases zero taxation, because you're just simply trading back and forth a completely legal tender, as if it is the US dollar in America or I'm not sure actually what Paraguay uses. But currently, Carlitos Rehala is said to be working with local actors on this bill. Rickman, Wanjo Rickman, again, slow it down. It's absolutely flawless. CEO of crypto exchange for Bitcoin.com confirms this on Twitter. He talks about working with the congressional representative to present a project to Congress for Paraguay to become a crypto-friendly country for crypto investors around the world, taking advantage of the renewable and cheap energy provided by the hydroelectricity. So, El Salvador first, maybe Paraguay second. Moving on here, lost access rights worth 8 billion yen worth of Ethereum entrusted or major custody FireBlocks are sued. So weird article name there, but what is this? So basically a company lost the private keys to a Ethereum staking pool. So I was sort of waiting for this to come around. I was actually more waiting on an exit scam of an Ethereum staking pool, but this is basically the same thing. So in this case, it wasn't necessarily an exit scam, but the entire pool's private keys have been deleted. So if you have staked Ethereum on this platform, who knows? Are they going to recover it or not? Is it possible? We're going to find out. So FireBlocks, a major cryptocurrency custody company, has been sued by staking platform Stakehound for losing its access to Ethereum of 38,178 Ethereum. So it's basically, we just basically deleted 38,000 Ethereum, which is worth about 8 billion yen. The proceeding was filed in the Tel Aviv District Court in Israel. The lawsuit alleged that one of the FireBlocks employees had deleted the wallet's private key without backing it up, which made Stakehound inaccessible to the assets it had deposited with FireBlocks. Stakehound is a third-party provider of cryptocurrency staking services that uses custody companies such as FireBlocks for management and operation, which makes no sense. So what does Stakehound actually do if they just sort of outsource all of the work to somebody else? I think that was a bad idea to begin with. I suppose if you researched Stakehound before you were going to stake, you would come to the conclusion that these guys just outsource all of their custody and management and operation to a different company somewhere else. So Stakehound, what do you guys actually do? That's kind of weird. So a total of 38,173 ETH related to ETH 2.0 staking were claimed to be inaccessible. Also, according to Stakehound's announcement, FireBlocks notified that it was inaccessible on May 2nd. Due to some human error on the FireBlocks side, the two required private keys were lost. FireBlocks did not generate a private key in the proper environment and did not store the private key for backup. Whoops, right? So we outsourced to FireBlocks, this great management and operation company who didn't create two private keys in any proper environment, nor did they store them for backup at all. Like, nobody even wrote it down on a piece of paper and threw it in a safe. Not even that. Not even a nano or a ledger or something. Not even like some kind of math wizard who can just remember all of it. None of it. They didn't even bother, which is the shard signature resulting in loss. In the coming weeks, we will announce the next step. First of all, we are implementing smart contracts to remove the stake ETH non-fungible token STETH from the liquidity pool. On the other hand, FireBlocks said, we are currently investigating the situation. All FireBlocks customers' funds are safe and the private key backup is recoverable. So they say it's recoverable, but they deleted the private keys. So is it recoverable? In the case of Stakehound, the private key was generated by the customer out of control of FireBlocks. There were some differences from what Stakehound pointed out. So that's a quote, basically. There were some differences from what Stakehound pointed out. So basically, FireBlocks says that Stakehound generated the private keys, but Stakehound says, even though they don't do anything and outsourced literally all of the operation to FireBlocks, said that they generated the private keys and then deleted them. So amazing. So please don't trust any pools. Maybe like Kraken or Coinbase. I would suppose I would trust those two staking pools over just about any other staking pools. Probably preferably Coinbase, just considering that I know Coinbase is easily one of the most secure exchanges with a high level of insurance backing them up. But so basically, people went to this Stakehound website or company and said, "Here's my ETH, stake it." And then Stakehound was like, "No, you guys stake it," and handed it to FireBlocks, and then they screwed it up. So amazing, just an amazing kerfuffle here. Just absolute knots and weaves that people are just trying to pull out a knot, and they're like, why isn't it pulling out? So yeah, this is just a mess. Unbelievable. One of the biggest messes I think I've ever seen in crypto, and that's saying a lot. I've been there, done that. Moving on, MicroStrategy buys $489 million more in Bitcoin. Company now holds more than 100,000 BTC. They actually own a reasonable percentage of the entirety of the circulating supply of BTC. I mean, 100,000 compared to, what are we at? Nearly at 19 million Bitcoin, something like that. It doesn't seem like a lot, but wow, that's a lot of money. Michael Saylor's firm MicroStrategy now has approximately 105,085 Bitcoin, which it bought for around $2.741 billion using the purchasing average. The company says it purchased all of the Bitcoin around $26,080. Oh, congratulations, MicroStrategy. It's actually going up. There was a running joke on my channel that I don't think people got for a little while that basically they've been buying a lot of Bitcoin for over a year now. And it was just always mysteriously and magically at $24,000. And then they'd go out and buy $5, $10, $15, $50 million worth more. And it would just be $24,000 per Bitcoin. It just never went up at all. As per usual, MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor tweeted about the purchase, telling his 1.2 million Twitter followers. Not everyone was impressed with MicroStrategy's Bitcoin buy announcement. And a few people like Peter Schiff made snide comments. That's pretty bearish that you already bought all that Bitcoin and the price kept dropping anyway. Which is kind of true. That's a lot of Bitcoin, $489 million in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's price continues to slide. I think I would feel a little bit nervous if I had bought $489 million worth of Bitcoin and it continued to go down on me, but I suppose MicroStrategy has the most diamond hands of us all. Consider where the price of Bitcoin would be today if Elon Musk, Michael Saylor, Barry Silbert, and all the other Bitcoin elites and their friends in the financial media hadn't spent the last 6 months convincing retail and institutional investors to buy their worthless tokens, Schiff said the day prior as Bitcoin's price began plummeting. Oh, Peter Schiff. Northwood Traders' Sven Henrik also responded to Saylor's announcement. Understand the conviction. Question, though, as the price average and employed leverage have been both been rising, what's the risk profile consequence if Bitcoin were to drop below the average holding price? Henrik asked the MicroStrategy CEO. When someone asked Henrik if Saylor's choice turned out to be a good bet, the Northman trader further commented, not saying he's wrong, Henrik replied, just asking what the risk profile is if the price drops below the holding price. So I wonder that too. So we have all of these companies buying unbelievable amounts. I mean, we have Tesla at $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Now we have MicroStrategy at 105,085 Bitcoin, which is umpteen billions worth of Bitcoin as well. What if Bitcoin crashes back to $10,000? Well, I think most Bitcoiners believe that it's just going to come back eventually and reach $100,000. But the bottom line of these companies would be pretty devastated. In fact, I feel like there's going to be a bearish period at least coming sometime soon. We may have a snap back to a higher price before this, but I feel like the future is a little bit bearish. And the reason, I'll probably make a video entirely on that, describing it a little bit more in detail. Also, I described that a little bit more in detail on my live stream, so catch me Friday. On one end is that President Biden of the United States is planning to raise the capital gains tax to 40%. Well, what that's going to do is if you knew that the capital gains tax was coming and it was going to double essentially from 20 to 40%, what would you do? Well, most investors would probably sell just before it reaches 40%. And then you would sell at 20% tax, pay your taxes, and that's going to dump the market because everybody's going to do that because would you rather sell at 20% or 40%? Well, probably 20%. And that's going to dump the markets. That's going to dump the stock markets, the Bitcoin markets. Everything is going to drop because of that. It's going to be devastating. However, after that, there's no capital gains from buying, so people can rebuy back in, and it may raise the prices back again. But it's going to leave less money available to reinvest reinvest over and over. If they sell it after it goes up, they're not going to want to reinvest over and over because they're going to have less money after selling at 40% gains. So another thing that I'm a little bit concerned with is the fact that the Federal Reserve of the United States is looking to decrease the inflation rate, increase interest rates on the money supply in order to sort of deflate the American U.S. dollar, because its inflation is absolutely out of control right now. And they were planning on doing that in 2024, but now have scaled it back to 2023, and that is very bearish for investors as well. So that's bearish in a lot of reasons for the stock market and also cryptocurrency and investing in general. And people will want to hold on to the dollar more because it's going to have a higher interest rate. You're going to get your money back because a deflating dollar is worth more than an inflating dollar, obviously. So that's not going to be good either. So we have these two events that are coming up that will be very bearish for investors overall. So if we do run into a bear market, if you wanted to consider this a bear market, even though we're way high in prices compared to, a year or two ago, etc. But if we do run into a bear market when Bitcoin goes under 30,000, there's a lot of resistance right now at 30,000, or a lot of resistance, like a lot of buying pressure, if you will, at 30,000. So it tries to dip below 30,000, but just keeps coming back up. Eventually, those orders are going to go away, and we're going to go downhill if that's the case, if it stays in this area too long. And if that happens, I'm not sure if we're going to recover for a couple years, at least until like 2024, because of the deflation of the U.S. dollar in 2023 and the 40% capital gains tax, both of which are not good for investors. Moving on here, Chinese Bitcoin miners not even in the mood to drink anymore. So there was the mining crackdown in China where they banned Bitcoin mining, and a lot of power plants are straight up cutting power to Bitcoin mining facilities. China wants them out, and a lot of the hash rate has dipped significantly. And everybody is packing up and leaving China. A lot of them are coming to the U.S., but the problem with coming to the U.S. is that there's a big import fee. So that's going to cut miners' profits down quite a bit. So if miners' profits get cut down quite a bit by having to essentially import to another country and paying a fee, what are they going to do? Probably sell Bitcoin. Again, fairly bearish, at least in the short period. China, once home to about 65% of the total Bitcoin mining hash power, has given the boot to several miners in the country. The country's Bitcoin mining ban means miners have been forced to shut down their operations, with some establishments already moving hardware overseas. Tweeting on Wednesday, Kevin Zhang, vice president of crypto mining advisory outfit Foundry, said the mood among Chinese miners has grown sour. Sentiment is obviously quite dreary, and the reality is setting in that it's GG for mining in China. Some mining friends have stuck around Sichuan since the Bitcoin conference to drink their sorrows away. Now, not even in the mood to drink anymore. According to Zhang, China's Bitcoin ban has caused about 70% of the country's mining capacity to shut down, and by the end of June, close to 90% will have gone offline. 90%, which is bad for Bitcoin. Period. It's some people argue this is a good thing, so that the mining will be more distributed around the world, and that is certainly a good thing. But to understand that miners will have to actually go to the United States or to North America, and there are import fees for that. So they're going to have to pay something like 20 or 25% import fees, and that's going to cut into their bottom line, and they're going to have to sell Bitcoin to actually pay for that. For some miners, the ban goes beyond shutting operations, as power stations in certain areas in the Sichuan province have served eviction notices to Bitcoin miners. Affecting miners reportedly have no more than a fortnight to uninstall all of their operating infrastructure, including racks and containers. As previously reported by Cointelegraph, some major Bitcoin miners have already begun to set up shop in other countries. So moving to the United States might present another major cost issue for miners on account of the 25% U.S. tariff on Chinese goods. So all of these thousands of dollars worth of miners each will be subject to 25% tariff. In order to pay for that, they're going to have to sell a lot of Bitcoin. So moving on here. So here's what China's Bitcoin mining crackdown 2.0 looks like. Empty. Chinese miners are reluctantly calling it a day, with reports of miners nationwide shutting their operations, going offline, and either selling their equipment for reduced prices or relocating overseas. So basically, they're all selling their miners, their mining equipment, or a lot of them are selling their mining equipment. So you're going to see this huge, incredible surge of used mining equipment. So if you are looking to buy some ASICs, wow, what a great time to be buying some ASICs, because there's going to be a lot on the open markets. In fact, there's so many on the open markets that Bitmain has stopped selling their goods, their miners, because there are so many ASICs actually coming back to Bitmain in the form of returns. And not only that, there are so many going out to websites at reduced prices, like third-party websites, that Bitmain is unprofitable and can't sell their miners because it costs more than all of the used miners that are out on the market. So Bitmain is actually getting wrecked right now. And they're so basically, Bitmain told the local mining community Wednesday it has stopped selling new equipment after prices for their top tier rigs plunged by about 75% since April. By postponing sales, it could help miners exiting the industry get better prices for their machines. Adding, the company could also benefit if the reduced supply buoys prices over the longer term for new machines. So Bitmain getting wrecked, everybody getting wrecked in China, and they're all packing up and moving, but they're going to be selling a lot of Bitcoins. There's going to be a lot of selling pressure, because if you had to pay 25% on the total of ASICs, and we're talking a whole warehouse filled with ASICs, moving it to the United States or moving it to Canada or some other country, you have to pay 20 or 25% or more in some cases to move that. That's an incredible amount of money. So it's just millions upon millions of dollars worth of ASICs, and you're moving it to a different country, 25%. How are you going to pay for that? Sell Bitcoin, unfortunately. So let me show you here real quick the total hash rate of Bitcoin in the last 24 hours. Well, this says the last 24 hours, but this is the year chart. So this is back in 2020. It goes all the way back to June 2020, and this is today. So you can see the hash rate, doop, 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 doop. It's just like the Price is Right with the little guy climbing the mountain. And then I believe this is probably about when the mining FUD started. Maybe it was here. I can't remember exactly when this Chinese mining FUD started, but you can see here it's just absolutely devastating in terms of the hash rate. And this is sort of a bad thing for Bitcoin, because when the hash rate all of a sudden goes offline like this, like if China all of a sudden just shut down, boom, all of their miners, total blackout, that means that all the rest of the miners in the world have to solve the next block. So the next blocks are going to be very, very slow for upwards of 2 weeks, because Bitcoin's difficulty changes every 14 days. So if it happened to be right after the 14th day, a difficulty change, and then all of a sudden China went into a blackout for 2 weeks, all of the rest of the miners in the world, which is the minority, would have to be able to solve high-level difficulty blocks in order to move every transaction. And if they solved one block, that doesn't lower the difficulty. It still takes 14 days to do that. So transactions for the next couple weeks will be very, very slow if that were to happen. And that's probably what's going on now. Although I haven't taken a look at the Bitcoin Block Explorer, maybe it's moving along just fine. But a sudden massive drop in hash rate is never particularly good for the network. So let's take like raw values here. And you can see it's at 90 million terahash per second, when it was at an all-time high of something like 180 million terahash per second. Again, Bitmain begins Bitmain suspends the sale of Bitcoin mining machines amid the China crackdown. So I guess we already talked about this. Basically, a 75% drop on the mining machinery, and they basically can't sell anything. They just have to stop, because there are so many Chinese miners who have capitulated. Some of them are packing up and moving to a different country to continue mining, but then the other half of them are essentially selling all of their miners. So I bet third-party websites right now are just absolutely littered with these machines, which normally they're fairly hard to get, and I'm sure they're going to be a very, very reasonable price for the average consumer, because there's going to be so many of them piling into all these websites. They're going to be very competitive with each other. and lower the rates. If one wants $3,000 for a machine, another one's going to go, well, we'll sell this one for $2,900. Another one sees that it's $2,900. They're going to sell them for $2,800, and they're going to be competitive with each other and try to lower prices as much as possible in order to sell this very large volume of ASICs that are entering the market. So no longer FUD at all. The China mining ban, totally true. Just like in 2017, September 2017, I believe, Bitcoin was nearly $5,000, and China banned Bitcoin exchanges, and I think that's the reason why Binance actually went to Malta at that time, and we went from $5,000 to $3,200. So from FUD to real, and now the mining ban goes from FUD to real. But moving on to CoinMarketCap here, $1.3 trillion market cap, so a huge devastation in the total market cap. I think we were at nearly 2.3 trillion market cap or something like that when we were at the high of like 63,000 some Bitcoin, etc. So we basically lost pretty much $1 trillion on the market cap. However, Ethereum fees are pretty much the lowest ever. 5 Gwei for a slow transaction. For standard, it's 8, and for a fast, it's 12. So it's basically free right now. The transactions have absolutely bottomed out completely. And the prices have as well. Bitcoin at $32,600. We were at $28,000. Ethereum at $1,910. We dipped below to $1,700 the other day as well. So all the prices getting rocked. Cardano is still remaining fairly well though at $1.20, which is interesting. Dogecoin slowly dying out as well. XRP back all the way down to 62 cents. But that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share the video. That helps me out a lot. My social media in the description below. Give me a follow on those if you get the opportunity to do so. And again, Friday, I'm going to be doing a live stream, probably 5 p.m. Eastern time, somewhere around there, maybe a little bit later. I'll give an announcement on my channel as a community post before I go live, shortly before I go live. And we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin market. We're going to be answering questions. We're going to have a Q&A. We're going to be discussing everything. You can just ask questions and it'll start a dialogue, etc., etc. It's always a good time. But until then, I will see you guys next time.